With everything in the news and all the information going out to children today, how do you talk to your kids about gender? I'm here with JD, Jen Devine from superstarhealtheducation.com, and I'm Cathy Bartoli from the intimacydojo.com. And you teach this all the time. I'd love to hear how do you talk to children? It's sometimes hard to talk to adults, so how do you talk to children about gender?
Well, I find that kids actually have a very open mind.
Yeah.
Inherently about the gender being a big spectrum, a big fluid, possibly shifting, definitely shifting experience.
Yeah.
So I try to ensure that in a classroom I'm not saying things that are binary, and by that I mean dividing into just two groups.
Male and female,
right.
Everybody must fit in, or you're not okay somehow.
Right, so I always am saying there are many genders, or there's lots of ways people can be. And I try not to use language that divides people up into two. And I also honor that children may be fluid in how they express their gender. And that can be, sometimes that's a part of exploring what they are as transgender kids, but sometimes it's just a natural kind of exploration of just who they are as any human being might explore gender.
Yeah, I'm cisgendered. I'm female by birth and by inclination, but like I went through a period where I was very tomboyish, and then there were times when I was like very femme, like I wanted to dress up more and wear makeup and stuff, and it just different parts of my life. And I think it's wonderful to allow people to explore who they are.
And it's not even an allow, it's like an inherent thing. And, you know, I know that probably in your world, cisgender is a term most people know. Cisgender, probably. I mean, but I'm guessing it's because many people are cisgendered, meaning that they fit the category they were given when they were born. So folks said, oh, look, a person with a vulva. Hey, little girl.
Yeah.
And that person's like, yep, I have a vulva, I'm growing up, I'm being a girl, I'm a girl, yep, I'm a girl. So if you fit the category that you were given as a child, then that we call that cisgender. And folks that maybe don't fit that category, either transgender, gender fluid, gender variant, gender creative, all those other ways that folks can be, would be not cisgendered. So it's a wonderful term made by the transgender community.
Yeah. Yay. Yeah. So you just try to role model. Do you actually talk about gender per se? Like, do you go into detail with kids?
Yeah, definitely. You know, in our puberty classes, where people who are gender variant often feel left out,
there's a huge amount of depression and suicides.
Even though we might look at how, you know, what's changing with anatomy and how anatomy commonly can show up, we don't want to leave out that there's ways that anatomy can commonly be. And we also include intersex people. It's a whole other story. Yeah. But we also say, you know, just because we say this person, we're looking at a vulva, we never say the vulva person is always a girl. We're always like the person with a vulva who's bleeding. And I use many examples. I might say, oh, then the trans guy goes to the store and gets his tampons and, you know, has to take care of that. Or some people with a vulva might identify as women. So I always am using multiple types of examples to ensure that maybe different people with different identities can relate to the anatomy they might have.
I love that role modeling, because when I was coming up, there wasn't even discussion of gay and lesbian, except that I held a friend's hand when she was upset and everyone called me gay, and I was like, I don't even know what that means.
Right.
I knew it was bad the way they said it, but there was no discussion of it. And the pictures we saw in school were vulva woman, penis man.
Well, and I think there's an interesting segue that just happened in that we were talking about gender, how people's deeply inherent sense of who they are and their self-understanding, we often conflate or mix up with sexual orientation or who we like. And both of those things end up with shame and stigma if they're not in the sort of cultural norm. But, I mean, I think for children, they get it pretty quickly if you say things like, oh, who you are, like that's what your gender stuff is. Like, who are you in your gender? Who are you inside yourself? Who do you know yourself to be? And then who you like, we call that as a grown-up, you know, sexual orientation. But as kids, I often say like attractional orientation, or even like who you think is cool, right? And there's lots of ways you can relate to people as friends, eventually maybe partners, or some people are asexual. Also important to remind kids of that too.
Yeah.
So.
I love you normalizing that for all of them and letting them know that it's all okay. And I think we can do that as parents as well. Like with children, I'm an aunt Just talking about it in a way that doesn't make everything binary would let kids go, oh, maybe I don't have to fit in a box. Because it can be really confusing. Teenagers, it's a very confusing time in general.
Yeah, I mean, even the box for what is considered culturally normative is a tough box, like the box that women get pushed into. It's like, oh, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too loud, you're too quiet, you're too mousy, you're too much makeup, you're too like, even that box is impossible to fit. And for boys, it's also difficult, the boxes that they get put into, where they're forced to code to only being tough.
Yeah, not having soft emotions.
Yeah, not having to have a full range of emotions. So, the more we can make room for all the ways that people get to express themselves, the healthier, happier people will be. And then they won't watch YouTube channels later trying to figure it out. But wait, it's good they watch YouTube channels later trying to figure it out.
If you like this, please like and subscribe. And we'd love to hear your comments below. What do you think? What questions do you have?
Excellent.